Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Summit, Future of Finance. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Also, be sure to subscribe to Argyle on YouTube for exclusive access to all our past events. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Nijaruna Narinjan, Chief Financial Officer, Master Fluid Solutions. We're super excited to have Naranja with us for a keynote presentation titled AI and Automation in Finance, Unlocking Strategic Advantage for CFOs. Welcome, Nijaruna. Over to you.
Thank you, Nick. And congratulations to Argyle for putting together this fantastic agenda and this summit. I see well over 150 registrations from senior finance leaders. And thank you for inviting me. I'm happy, honored to be here. I've been in accounting finance for over 30 years. I've had the good fortune to work in other departments during this time as well. I've started in sales, I've worked in operations and quality, and of course, accounting and finance. Also had the good fortune to be CEO for a good part of the year. So, uh, for the topic du jour, I hope to reach into all parts of my journey and bring you some good insights. Today's topic is something we all think about before we go to bed, probably the first thing when we wake up. And the topic also deserves that attention as we head into our CFO roles, which in the modern industry, I see the modern CFO role with so much data available to us. In the last 5,000 years, when we were just bookkeeping on clay tablets, we've come a long way. With all of the information that's available to us, the technology that's available to us, uh, our role is shifting from being a steward or an operator to becoming a strategist or a catalyst to drive growth in business. And especially in today's world of AI and automation, our mandate as a CFO is to proactively now shape the long term strategy to help be that revenue identifying partner to match the priorities of the business with the market. We're also now called upon to foster a tech enabled, data driven culture in some of that steward qualities we still carry with us because the boards are reaching out to CFOs increasingly to help with ethical and compliant AI adoption and also to quantify the impact of AI investments. Now, how are we doing as CFOs with the new mandate that we have here? Now, a survey this year shows about 82% of CFOs are considering adopting AI, and about 18% are overwhelmed with the available options. They don't know where to start. Now, what does that mean? That means that we have moved on beyond researching, beyond exploring the AI options. We're now actively engaging in implementations, in approving projects, in sponsoring projects that are adopting AI and automation in our world. Um, these numbers look very daunting, and it feels like we're already on the roller coaster. Uh, in 25 minutes, I don't know that we'll peel back this onion completely, but we should be able to scratch the surface and at least focus on two places where CFOs can use AI as a lever. The first would be to drive revenue growth, and the second would be to build a intelligent and an efficient department. How do we do that? About 40% of all the apps that we use, Gartner says by 2026 will have some form of machine learning and AI built into it. So using that, we can, as CFOs and senior finance leaders, we can unlock new revenue streams. We can enhance the sales marketing ROI, or I call the frontline spending. We can elevate the dialogue in the executive staff as well as in the boardroom using AI. And the last part is still, how do you govern this growth responsibly? And that's another place where CFOs are being called on to add an impact to. In terms of new revenue streams, there's several opportunities here, but I think the big piece where we can bring in that change would be accessing the amount of data that's available to us. So we've been collecting data for decades now, where we use ERP systems, and then we moved on to business intelligence. Uh, to connect this with the big data that's available today, analyze the customer behavior, the market trends, the pricing, and we can look at options where we dynamically either impact pricing or we look at the bundled offerings. The second is monitoring data assets. Really, it's part of building that new revenue channel, but a large enough term that warrants its own focus. In by saying monetizing data assets, I'm not talking about selling big data to Wall Street, but what I'm really looking at is the insight that we are building with access to this data, building in machine learning, building in artificial intelligence guidelines. Are we building insights that the customers can use, and it influences their operations, increases their efficiencies? An example would be sensor driven monitoring. Now, in the manufacturing industry, if there are sensors and they measure the impact of your product performance, is that also showing us other data points when analyzed together with these tool sets that are available to us today? Are we able to gather some insight and put together patterns that the customers can now use to understand if they can do a better maintenance, if they can increase their efficiencies, or fix some of their issues, or identify their investment portfolio from those? These are insights that are critical and will actually drive the top line. The last part, the second part, is really the sales and marketing ROI, or the frontline spend. We can look at the revenue attribute modeling. I was in a conference with about 70 other CFOs in Florida earlier this year, and the main part of conversation everywhere was how the organizations are focusing on growth but don't have the ability to spend more on sales resources. So lead conversion forecasting, collaborating with sales to prioritize high probability leads. Can we guide the other departments to be more efficient? Can we give our sales team a list of 4 leads where all 4 may convert, instead of having them chase 10 or 15 where they could convert 1 lead? So that's some of the places where we can narrow down the company's focus and further revenue growth. Churn predictions. Is there something, while we look at our data analysis and insights, are we pulling together some other patterns that help us look at churn, help us look at customer acquisition cost, help us guide through some customer retention strategies? These are places where the CFOs increasingly are being called upon to provide information and help revenue growth along. In the boardroom, there's I for the last 6 board meetings, I cannot remember a board meeting where the board hasn't asked me, what are the risks of implementing AI, and where are the better use cases? So that's another place where we can start impacting the business. The answer for the governing growth responsibilities seems very obvious. It's really starting with low risk, high impact use cases and then scale. There's a lot of pressure to get on this AI bandwagon. So scaling before we identify the right projects probably won't get us there faster. We still have to look at the ROI of these AI cases and then pick the right projects. Now, I call this next phase really a journey from tech automation to value creation. And the reason I call this is because the tech stack that's available to us today is taking us beyond reporting, beyond financial analysis, to a point where we're adding value to the company, to the market. The first step, and it's a daunting journey when you look back at the finance department and say, how can I engage AI? How can I make my department better? How can I make data better? How can I provide the right insight? The first and foremost is going to be to understand the tool set that's available to us. I'll take you back to the previous page one more time. About 40% of the applications that we use today will be embedded with machine learning, with AI, will offer efficiencies. So the biggest win for us would be to understand what tools are available. What are the capabilities that we aren't using as well today? Microsoft is doing a wonderful job of pushing Copilot into everybody's computers. We Most of us have the Microsoft suite where Copilot's offered, and it enables made querying so easy that you could ask it questions in natural language. You could ask it, I'm presenting to the board, and the board's really concerned about AI. What is the message I need to deliver? And you can type exactly these words into Copilot, and it will give you different perspectives. Now, at this point, none of these natural language queries are a 100% replacement of your experience, but is an excellent way to bring in several perspectives, data points, and try to answer questions before they're asked. Helps you elevate the board conversations and the executive dashboards, because the way we manage business today and the way the market's interacting with our business seamlessly requires us to now go beyond just our data and our reports and bring in the market trends and patterns and try to have that conversation in the executive staff meetings. Automating routine tasks. Now, there are several, we've always been over the last 20, 30 years, we've always been automating. We used to use macros and pivot tables, and now we have access to much more powerful tools. There are disruptor tools that are not just automating, but combining the entire life cycle of a transaction. A few months ago, we were looking for a solution for corporate credit cards, for T&E expense reporting, for travel management systems, and there are disruptor products out there that combine this entire life cycle and say, the minute you charge your card, I'm going to handhold this transaction and take it all the way to your ERP system. And you don't even have to look at it. Nobody needs to file an expense report. And if there is an exception, then we'll raise it. And then the second level, where once you configure this into your systems, it catches exceptions. And then over time, it learns how you respond to these exceptions and offers an agent that will handle routine exceptions to you. So it's automatically upskilling the processor, the operator. These tools are saying to us, don't be desensitized by many exceptions. Watch out for the big ones and handle those exceptions the way the business would like to respond to them. So these are powerful tools out there. They can also accelerate close cycles with automation. Machine language now automates most of AP. There's intelligent AP, intelligent AR tools, intelligent treasury operations, and FP&A. There's predictive modeling. So the first way to go about this is to automate the routine transactions, but the outcome of this really is real-time insight. The insight it provides to most of us to look at the business and to manage the triggers that come out of it seamlessly. Because I like to say the formula is if you have internet access, if you invested in either a cloud or a solid data system, you bring in the data and you have AI assistants to support you, that automatically gets you to a faster decision making. The AI-driven digital twins, and these are simulation softwares that are now able to take take our deepest risks and concerns, model them, and give us different outcomes. So we are now able to make better decisions. Enhanced FP&A programs. Uh, this is now taking us to concepts where you can do dynamic pricing or real-time pricing like Uber is. It helps us take our information and combine it with the larger market information and helps us make quick decisions. The CFO today, the mandate is changing quite a bit. So we're now expected to process through a lot of data and make decisions much faster than we needed to before. The only way to set up the team for success is to upskill the team, yeah, to use this tech stack as an equalizer. The last 2 points on this chart, I like to refer to them more as outcomes because to meet that mandate, now the finance teams really need to begin developing insights from data. Their information should now influence decisions. As against a few years ago, they were homogenizing data, they were scrubbing data, they were trying to put data in readable formats. But now this new team needs to know how to manage large amounts of data and bring out the insights. And it's super critical to do that. And the risk of not getting there faster will be that we're a data rich but an insight poor organization. And that's where everyone's headed. Fortunately, the technology is growing with us, so we now have access to a tech stack that can be an equalizer. The tools that large companies had access to, the resources now are available to small and medium businesses as well. So, one of the big things we can do as finance leaders is to use this tech stack as an equalizer so you can compete in the market. No matter what the size of the company is today, the finance teams are much smaller, there are fewer resources. So we are now forced to harness the infrastructure for uh, the same infrastructure that larger companies are using for our data making, for our decision making, for data gathering. Uh, the other big change with these investments is also it's taking long-term capital investments that took years to complete into small OpEx investments. It also helps us quite a bit in terms of agility and helps us move faster. Uh, I don't know in this group how many of you have tried to do the one ERP concept, but now with cloud, with the business intelligence tools, and with AI integrating into the same tech stack, it helps us get to a much faster, more agile solution that could work for us as a company. The other big win for creating value is to prioritize focus on collaboration. So this no longer is just a make my finance department efficient and intelligent, but more of collaborating with the cross-functional group. So we can maximize the synergies, we can minimize the risks. Um, Throughout this time, I kept mentioning something like a tech stack. So, how does that even determine the journey that CFOs are making today? So, what we see in our journey from automating our technology or data to creating value in a company are these high level steps. The first one is to collate the information, and the second is to curate insights. Several of us are in one of these phases, and some of us could be in all of them depending on the locations we are in and the maturity of different product lines. But definitely, we've traversed through many of these boxes as we go through our tech stack, just our operating system, whether it is for IT or our business. The first piece is definitely collating the data. In we have cloud solutions now, whether it's an ERP system or an EPM system, and this helps us understand what are we looking for, when are these transactions happening. And we've also gone to the next round where we say We curate, we have analytics that tell us what's happening, how is the market behaving. But the real leap happens when we start influencing and impacting, and this is where we want to know who and how. But thank you for listening to me for this long. Just to summarize really quickly, where we see automation or the tech stack, including AI, is at a strategic lever for our growth, for our innovation, to foster a culture that keeps us agile and unlocks new values for the business we are in. So I'll kick this over to Nick. I see some really good questions coming in, and um, please send in your questions on the chat. We'll answer as many as we can. If you come up with questions 7, 8 days later or 7 hours from now on, feel free to use your co-pilots or the chat GPTs. I'm sure they will give you some good perspectives as well. One of the things I see, and Nick, if you don't mind, if I begin with that question and maybe you can walk me through the others, is how do you see the role of the CFO evolving over the next 5 years as automation and AI continue to advance? It leads in
Yeah.
really to some of the items that you've seen here. Um, Today, speaking from experience and from experience of my peer group, the CFO now is in most of our meetings, we're not the people that are bringing the numbers anymore. We're the people that are reflecting upon the strategic direction the company is taking and influencing the strategy and driving the business where they see value. So that's really where I see us going. Um, More and more, the business systems and finance are merging together, and data is available to everybody. So we're now on the hot seat to make sure that the context is set for the data. So we're no longer just bringing the data, but we're also the people that are setting the context, and the boards are repeatedly they are looking to the CFO to be the voice of the calm in the boardroom, because there's just so many opportunities, there's so many risks and technology advances, so they're looking to the CFOs now to be the voice of calm, voice of reason, and help set the pace for the organization to get through. Over to you, Nick.
Great. Yeah. We have some more questions from the audience. Here's one. What are some of the biggest risks associated with AI implementation in finance, and how can those risks be mitigated?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's So some of the risks that we see are bias in the data and um, the ability for data to interact. So these two, I hear these two often, and let me take it one after the other. The first risk that I hear a lot from the executive staff as well as from the board and shareholders mainly is the data. More and more B2B businesses want their data to be held within the organization, but however, would like to harness the insights that they get from AI, from generative AI or the chat GPT kind of transactions. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. So do you want to make sure that the data privacy laws are met and you're keeping your data private. But at the same time, we have to tweak the effectiveness of the data that's coming back to us. As more and more companies want to keep their data private, sometimes the answers that you get back may reflect back on your own patterns. One of the bigger uses of AI is in R&D, and I'm going to step out of finance for just a second. Nobody wants that information to go out. However, we also want to break pattern and get to innovation faster than we can on our own. So these are areas where to identify the guardrails within which we want to use AI and generative AI, I think will be super helpful. And setting our targets within that guardrails, I think, is what's going to lead us to success. The other piece is going to be bias. It kind of plays into reading our own responses. But setting that context for information that you get back from AI is also going to be one of the big risks as we start implementing AI.
Great. Here's another question. What governance frameworks or policies should be in place to ensure responsible use of AI within finance?
Right. Um, Once again, I'm probably going to go a little bit out of finance as well, because I see finance as the connection point for the entire business. And now we interface with almost every department. The transactions begin in every department, but they end in finance. So the best way to have the right governance is to have it organization wide at the front end. So when we get the data at the last step of the process, we're getting the right data. Um, so the first is to make sure that we have the right data infrastructure. And the second is to educate people, especially we talked about Gemini and Chat GPT and Copilot in everybody's computer. So educating the teams about what kind of information to type in these chat bots, I think is a big education. Um, Governance on where can you use AI is also going to be, it's going to be twofold. One is definitely more training to all the key users, but in the back end, building an information lake and security around the systems to ensure that the data queries that are entered into from the company is monitored, screened before any data is sent outside of the company's network. These are two places that we're really focusing on. But that's also where most of the legal dollars are. One other place to look at is most of our AI implementations or use cases come from systems that other people have developed for us, whether you use a CRM system or a consolidation system. So the SaaS governance that's built in by these organizations that we use is also something worth looking at. Read their SaaS agreements, see how data ownership is detailed out in these contracts. That's a good place to start to make sure that we own the data that we're responsible for, and we're not sending data outside of the company that we're not allowed to.
Great. And I think we can squeeze in one more question. Can you share an example of how AI has accelerated your financial close process or improved forecasting accuracy?
Um, so again, it's gonna depend on what your goal is. But close cycles, we're now going into what used to be called a fast close in the past is now a regular close. The finance department is spending maybe between 2 days to 3 days to close, and another 2 days potentially to forecast. And the remaining time really is when they're helping run the business or steer the business or provide insights, and working on strategies. So today, several of the routine transactions have been automated. We're bringing in FP&A planning tools, or if you're using EPM tools of any kind, there's predictive forecasting, which has been used with some success. Um, so understanding what is the right level of data that you need as a company and implementing predictive forecasting at that level is going to give you faster insights. I think there are some places that you can begin to accelerate the close. Um, but really upskilling the team and creating a good data framework where the data you collect is already in a good shape, and investing in combined life cycle tools that automates several transactional processes, I think that's where your success will lie.
Great. And thank you again, Nijaruna, for such an incredible keynote. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. This officially concludes the Argyle CFO Summit, Future of Finance. Thank you again for joining us today and engaging in our content. We look forward to seeing you at our next Argyle Digital Finance event soon, which will be our Finance Solutions Expo. Discover the tools to drive financial excellence on October 28th, 2025. Have a great rest of your day.